Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and today I have Donnell Boucher on the show. Donnell is one of the most creative young strength coaches that I know. He's doing some phenomenal things there at the Citadel. He's the assistant athletic director at the Citadel for strength and conditioning. He's been in a variety of places, but today I wanted to bring him on the show because he's of his creativity and to see what we can learn from him with that. But this conversation is one of those conversations that just could go on and on and on, and there's a ton of great nuggets in this episode. So I know you're really gonna enjoy it. Before we get started, though, I want to give a shout out to Play Sports Flooring for being the sole sponsor of Iron Game Chalk Talk. They help make this show free for you guys, and they're a great company, a great floor. And if you're designing a facility, give these guys a call and have them come in. And what I appreciate most about Play is they'll straight up tell you whether or not they're a good fit for you or not. And they let the product do their talking for them, and that's all that you can really ask for. So reach out to them, sit back and enjoy this episode. I know you're going to get a ton out of it. Okay, so one of the things that pisses my wife off more than anything is when I lay in bed at night and I'm surfing YouTube and, I'm looking for ideas for my programs. And if you do that as well, if you're a crazy person like me, then you've probably come across this guy, Donnell Boucher, the assistant AD at the Citadel. He has some phenomenal stuff. I check out your YouTube page pretty regularly. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be here.
Hey, for the people that don't know you as well, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, kind of what got you into the field of strength and conditioning, and maybe some of the things you got going on now.
Okay, well, I guess we'll go back to high school for that. But I'm from Western Massachusetts, and where I grew up, sports were not a very big deal up there, at least not compared to where I am now. I mean, we're in a hotbed for high school football there. Sports are kind of a part of the younger people's lives down here. But up in Western Massachusetts, it's not too big of a deal. And I didn't play competitive sports until I got to high school. Freshman year was my first year of football. And didn't really know what to expect. I've always been a bigger kid. I'm actually the same size I am right now. I was 185 as a freshman, 14 years old.
Wow.
I'm about 188 right now, so I'm like exactly the same size that I was way back then. And just went out for football, got out there as a freshman, and I think a lot of it had to do with my size, but I did really well. I was hard to tackle, and we had a good freshman team and made some great friends along the way. But between my freshman and sophomore year, when I got up into the varsity, one of our coaches was in the lifting weights, and he was a bigger guy, and he brought me into the weight room, which wasn't a weight room. It was more like a closet with a bench and some broken dumbbells on the ground, but started just showing us the basics of lifting. And we'd get on a bench, and he would just, we'd work out on the bench for 30 minutes, and that was the extent of what we did for weight training. And, that was the first time I realized, like, wow, man, I might not be the smartest kid. I might not be, like, a talented dancer or, I don't have much talent in much other things,
right.
But I was pretty strong. And I had football going for me, so it kind of drew me in the way it draws most of us, and I would suppose. And throughout the course of high school, I got more and more into training. Would go to the local world gym and would do the most, like when you look back on it now, the most asinine type of training you could think about.
Yep.
We would get on a treadmill, we would run like 2 miles. Then we would do, 10 different exercises that had no correlation to one another. We would just figure out, muscle and fitness. You do whatever they had in there.
And your Zuma pants and your cut-off T-shirt, right?
I think that was more your day than mine. I don't think I had Zuma pants, but we certainly didn't dress too cool.
All right.
But yeah, and then you got out of high school and went to college. I was trying to go to prep school. It didn't work out. Got recruited by a small Division III school in Worcester, Mass. And in Worcester was where really things changed for me in terms of my profession. The stars aligned, if you would, and looking back on it, it's kind of crazy, but Worcester State College doesn't have a dedicated exercise science department. If I knew anything back then, I would have went to Springfield College because I was right next door. I grew up in Chicopee, Mass, which is right next door.
Yep.
But I didn't even have a clue back then. So when I got to Worcester State, joined the football team there, and lo and behold, 4 of the seniors that I played with as a freshman went on to become two of them became college strength coaches, and one of them just runs his own private deal up in Worcester now. Wow. But those three guys were Teddy Perlak, who's the head guy at Fordham right now.
Yeah, I know Teddy.
Jeremy Frisch, who was at Holy Cross for a little bit. Now he owns his own place in Clinton, Mass. It's called Achieve Performance. And then Frank Nash, who was actually my position, but he kind of showed me the ropes, taught me how to play. And he opened his own place called Frank Nash Training Systems in Worcester. And he was in personal training while we were at the end of college. So I watched him grow that place from nothing into a pretty serious place, one of the most heavily followed places up in that area now.
Wow.
But those three guys took me under their wing, and that's when I realized, like, hey, there's no question in my mind, this is what I want to do. All my time and energy, that my free time, and this is probably not good for the younger people to say, but I spent more time trying to mimic Excel templates and trying to look up training articles than I did working on my schoolwork.
Yeah.
That's why I spent a lot of time repairing my GPA in my final year. But it was just an infatuation that I couldn't argue, and it was really clear to me that that's what I wanted to do. So from that point, I got involved with any speed camp I could. I got involved with different area. I'd go to Holy Cross. That's when I met Jeff Oliver,
yep.
Who very fortunate to know him and to meet him at a young age and see their program and learn from that program. And then I got the opportunity to go back and help out at my college and work with the football team and the baseball team there. Mm-hmm. And I basically served as their strength coach for the better part of 2 years.
Right.
And, everything kind of snowballed from there into my next job at the Competitive Athlete Training Zone. And got to meet David Jack, who's a special individual.
I met David this last weekend, actually. He's an awesome guy.
He's a one-of-a-kind guy. I got to work with him for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And, he taught me a lot about just, finding what was important to me and following my calling. And, lo and behold, 2007 rolls around. Adam Fite calls me up. He had just gotten a GA down here, and Frank Wintrick was the guy doing the hiring. And, as history would have it, I ended up down in Charleston, South Carolina, completely out of the blue. I had almost given up on the college game because I tried applying to every big-time school I could and didn't get a graduate assistantship everywhere. And I just figured I would rather work and make some money than go and keep interning or trying to intern at other places when I didn't really have much money.
No doubt.
And so after about a year's time, I got hooked up down here at the Citadel, and the rest is history. It's been kind of a dream come true, getting down to this place and getting connected with the people that I have.
It's amazing, I can't tell you how many strength coaches that I've met that have been that's their story. They were at a small NAIA Division III, Division II school, no strength coach, go off, decide this is what they want to do, go back, write programs. I was cleaning out my office and came across an old manual that I wrote when I was a senior in college for the women's basketball team, and looking at that program, going, "Holy cow, what was I thinking?" But I'm sure you've had moments like that as well. You've had a ton of success, man, and everybody that's followed you knows that. You're heavily involved in the YSCCA. What do you attribute your success to? What were some things that you maybe identified early in your career that said, I'm going to be doing these things to help make myself a name in this profession?
Well, I guess it was probably two things that are kind of, I don't know if these are common responses, but I don't know, maybe my mother had something to do with it. And what she instilled in me from a young age was that you can always be more than what you are now. And she was that, I'd be at, she was that lunatic at the freshman football games. And we when I got in my sophomore year, when I got to varsity, and we took a beating that year. We were a very bad football team. And she would act like, I'd score one touchdown and we would have got beat by 35 and she'd act like it was the biggest deal in the world. Mm-hmm. And with everything in my life growing up, she was kind of like that. We didn't have a lot of money. She drove a car it was embarrassing to get in that car, but she always showed me that, hey, you're not defined by the things that you own. You're not defined by the background you come from. You can make yourself become whatever it is you want to be. And if you want more for yourself, then you got to go ahead and work for more for yourself. So I think she instilled kind of a deal in me that I always wanted to just have I wanted anything that I was associated with to be better than it was at the current time that I was associated with. Mm-hmm. So from being in college and having templates and finding a template and saying, I want to make this template look better. Or, obviously goal setting and working in the weight room. Right. It's funny, you said you brought up a manual. When I was working with our baseball team at Worcester State, I only worked with them for 8 weeks. It was in the winter, right before they went into their season.
Right.
But I found a manual that I made that was I just wanted to outline all my policies and things that I wanted to do. And I mean, I was like 21 at the time. Nobody told me to do that. It wasn't for class credit or anything like that. I just did it because it was interesting to me, and I wanted to kind of build that thing just to have it for no other reason than just I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
So I think always just striving for more and just trying to build something better than what you could probably had a lot to do with it. And then the other thing would be just coming from where I came from. It's not a place that a lot of people did a lot of good things. So that just made me want to get out of there and go do some good things and do different things than what people normally did around there. I knew I wanted to get out. I knew I wanted to go see the country and see different places, and I was willing to sacrifice for that. So I learned the value of just taking chances. Mm-hmm. and go ahead and not just taking a chance to take a chance, but going all in for that chance and working towards something that you might not have had. So, I mean, and I think those things serve me the most now. When I see the way that our staff works, the dynamic that we have here, the weight room that we have here, there is more things here that I could complain about probably than a lot of people have at a lot of other places.
Right.
But I don't choose to do that. I just choose to focus on what I want this place to become. I focus on what we do have, and that's what kind of makes us go. It's not about what we don't have or how bad my situation is or things that I should have.
Right. It's
just about how lucky I am to work for one of the most prestigious institutions that you can come across, a place that so many people have come through and sacrificed so much for, mm-hmm. and I have such a respect for it. When people come back here and they talk and they come back and speak to the team, it just drives me. And I think the third thing that comes to mind is the respect that I've always had for people that have done it before me.
Right.
I can remember I got my hands on, it was when Adam Fite was out at Arizona State interning with House, with Joe Kent out there. And that was when I first got into his whole career path. And then, learning about what he had done and the things he had established. And as you go through and you start reading about people and finding out about the things that people have done,
right,
in our field, I have a serious respect for that. Because I go back to what it made me feel like when I was playing back when I was in high school and college, and it probably kept me on a better path than I would have been on had I not had that driving me. Just the inspiration I have of just knowing that we go to a high school football game and we played for what's called the Sword back in Chicopee, and there'd be 5,000 people at this game because it was such a big deal. The inner city rivals.
Right.
I'd be that guy crying before the game. Just losing all control of my emotions. Because it was that important to me that people would come and watch me do something and have, I guess, enjoyment out of that. Mm-hmm. And I was the one on the field playing. And then so I just realized, like, man, there are strength coaches that do the same thing. They lead young guys that people are going to watch, and they'll continue to watch and continue to get inspiration from. And if I can have a part in that and do that for somebody else, I mean, that's going to drive me to just constantly try to improve and constantly try to get better. So I think the respect factor was huge for me too. Just being able to look at people and really having an appreciation for what they have done.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned, having respect for the place that you work, and we talked a little bit off camera about making the big time where you're at. It's a book that by Frosty Wesseling that I recommend our staff read. You've done that there at the Citadel, but by being there, you've had to deal with some challenges. You had to deal with maybe not as high of a budget as maybe some of the other schools, maybe not as many staff members as the other schools. Obviously, the external demands of the military lifestyle and discipline and the university, high rigors academically. Talk a little bit about the challenges that you've had to deal with and how maybe you've overcome some of those.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some unique things here. We got our kids are pulled in 20 different directions. It'd be awesome to really have our hands on them all the time and just control their whole physical development, like some places get to. From a nutrition standpoint, from a sleep standpoint, from an hour standpoint, all that. So you gotta handle that with intelligence. You just gotta look at it and you gotta make the decision and say, do we push them the way you'd push them if we were at South Carolina State? Do we maximize if we got 8 hours in the off season? Is it mandatory that we go for 8 hours? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's better to go 6.5 hours and let them apply that other hour and a half to their studies and just getting sleep.
Right.
Maybe that makes more sense for us. So it's like anything else. I mean, you just got to look at it and you got to pick and choose your battles, and you got to figure out which one's going to have the most return on the investment, and then act in the interest of that. We obviously recruit. You got to recruit a certain type of kid. You can't recruit just the best athlete. You got to recruit the best athlete you can find, but you got to also recruit the kid that's going to make it here. Because the best athlete you're going to find isn't always going to make it through here. They're not going to make it through the academic programs, and they're not going to make it through having, some kid that's half their size scream in their face for an entire year.
Right.
It takes a certain person to do that.
Right.
And a lot of that goes credit to our coaching staffs here. They figured that stuff out, and they have acted in the interest of that, just making sure that we get the quality people that we have in here. And then, of course, like from our standpoint, our budget. Our budget is not astronomical, but it is a budget. I know people that don't have a budget. I know people that can't go buy 5 stretch bands if they want to buy stretch bands.
Yep.
We don't have that problem. We make things work with what we got. And then now on the other side of the seesaw, the thing that balances us out is we've got tremendous alumni. Every year, if I need to go and get $5,000 for something, there's a good chance that I can get that to happen. Might not happen, but there's a good chance I can get that to happen. That's on top of our operating budget. The other thing, and one of the bigger challenges, is just our staff. Our staff is underpaid, like most everybody's staff is. But I came to that realization a long time ago, too. A very small percentage of departments in the nation have people that are getting paid what they should be getting paid.
Right.
They're dealing with restricted earnings positions. They're dealing with interns that they have to count on. I'm thankful that I have 3 GAs that we can enlist. I'm thankful that I have an associate director that I can lean on. So our GAs are, not only is it finding the right kids that can make it through here, but I got to find the right GAs that can come through here and make it without getting paid.
Right.
Because they're not getting paid, but they're expected to do full-time work. They're getting their tuition and everything covered on that front, but they have to be in the right situation, and they have to be aware that they're coming into that. So we spend time talking about that during our interview processes. But yeah, challenges here are no small thing, but we've just found ways to it's a part of the job. Who doesn't have challenges? If it ain't one thing, it's another. So we just say, hey, we're not going to focus on the problem. We're going to find solutions to the problem, and we'll continue to move forward without letting anything hold us back.
What was the process that you took when you reached out to those alumni? Because I mean, just in most places, it's kind of a touchy subject. You got your development office, you got the school, hitting those alumni up. You got the development office and the athletic department hitting those people up. They don't always like you going and contacting the alumni directly. What was the process that you took to try to get some of those dollars?
Well, for one thing, we have a football association, and our football association is the best support staff you could ever find. And the guy that runs it, John Carlisle, is a guy that he was an athletic director in the state of South Carolina. He gets the big picture of everything. Right. So the support for our department is obviously there. It's just a matter of knowing how to speak the language. It's knowing how to have your priorities listed so they're ready. So when you get the call and somebody says, "Hey, we've got a couple extra dollars. What do you need?" You've got to be able to present that in the appropriate fashion. So we try to do our homework on that front. Right. But then the other thing is we've had some good luck. Well, not good luck. We've had some good athletes come through that work their butts off and have gotten drafted. Right. And, we haven't gotten any huge gifts because we're not at that point. Those guys are going to be involved when we get, the strategic plan rolling and all that. But if I need to get wall timers installed, I got somebody that I can pick up and call and ask for a couple $100. And they don't have a problem with it because they know that they put the time in the weight room and they're eager to give back. Right. So it's just having a good relationship, and it's, I think public relations goes into it, and it's just, again, it's kind of my mentality with this whole department. Not to get too far off subject, but I'm amazed at how many people in our industry are just a weight room guy.
No doubt.
It's just a strength and a speed type of guy, or gal. It's not just about guys, but for me, it's like I look at our department as if it were a company,
right.
And we were depending on dollars to sustain us. Even though we're not, I still play that game in my head, and I pretend that.
Sure.
And that means you got to have a marketing side of things. You got to have public relations to have a better network. You got to be able to have relationships with the resources in your area to draw upon and to also count on when you might need them. Branding comes into it, and I guess that kind of stems from my. I'm kind of a closet computer geek, so I'm real interested in Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Gary Vaynerchuk with social media, and those are the guys that I found interesting. And I've applied all the things that they've kind of done, and found ways that they make sense for the weight room here, and just go ahead and get after it.
That's an important point. I was going to touch on that in the next question, but thinking of I kind of use a CEO strength coach. It's the same type of thing. You're the CEO of your company, just exactly as you mentioned, and it's one of those things that it can be looked at one way, or it could be looked at it negatively. One being when you put out those YouTube clips, or when I do these interviews, or go out and speak or write or do different things, you run into these situations where you have some people that really support it and understand it, and you have some people that you're just trying to be a self-promoter and all those types of things, and I think you hit the nail right on the head with you're trying to build your program, and you're trying to run it in an organizational type of fashion, and you're thinking with an entrepreneurial mindset to accomplish that. And I'll tell you, I was that guy. Way back when, when I was coming through, I look at like a Mike Boyle and say, Mike, he's a sellout. He used to be an assistant. Now he's just kind of, he just kind of puts these DVDs and, he's just trying to make money. And what I really learned, when I got outside of that box, was that he's just monetizing his learning experience. And that's really what it comes down to, is you're trying to learn and promote your program. And I think you're doing an excellent job. Kind of going along with that is I see all the creative things that you do. A lot of people do, and whether it be the YouTube clips or maybe some staff development type things that you're doing and putting out there. Talk a little bit about why you do that, and then as well as where do those ideas come from? Because you come up with some awesome stuff now.
I guess to start from the beginning, it's I came across a statistic at some point where it was like 40% of high school athletes or students or something, I have to look this up to get the actual number, have learning disabilities. And early on in my career, I found the value. I found the assimilation between what we do and teaching. I mean, it's no different than being a teacher. We've got a skill we're trying to teach to somebody else. We've got to have a plan, and we've got to be organized in that approach. Otherwise, they're not going to learn as well as they might learn. So it came to the point where it was like, this should be a dynamic learning environment. This should be just like a classroom with a teacher that does well. And I just thought about my own experience, like a good majority of your teachers, you probably wouldn't describe as being a good teacher, because it was.
Frozen up.
It was more cut and dry. Like, here's the notes, here's the PowerPoint, and you go learn it. And I know I experienced some of that. I experienced some of that. But the teachers that did do a good job and got you pulled into stuff, to this day, I mean, I think about those teachers. If I ever cross paths with them when I'm back home visiting, they're the most important people in my developmental years. And just, how do you get people to buy into what you're doing, to trust what you're doing? But also, it's not only about that stuff. It's also about, we're trying to shape attitudes. We're trying to simulate a game time environment. So from the creative stuff with the training program, just the competitions and the way that we do different challenges and whatnot, it's just a matter of sitting down with the staff and saying, all right, how can we do something that's not going to be just flip a tire for a minute and see how many tire flips you can get in?
Right.
We want to see if we can draw in more elements of reaction, of, obviously racing against another person, that's going to always be there. But having to choose which path to take on the fly, doing things from a defeated. So it's just how many different elements of cognition can you install into whatever it is you're trying to do, and you come up with things. I mean, the sky's the limit. Right. When you think about that stuff. And I think that all that goes back to, again, we're trying to make these guys come in here, and we're trying to make this experience be the best experience on this campus. We have to do that because there's a lot of things on this campus that they have the tendency to not enjoy.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be the guy that they show up to the weight room and it's just another thing on their schedule. I want them to walk in here and realize, all right, time to buckle up because this is the roller coaster ride starting. And no matter what you did before, what you're doing that night, for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, or whatever it is, you've got to engage because you're going to be engaged. And if you don't, you're going to get exposed. And that goes into the team building element of it all. Nobody wants to be the guy that can't pull their own weight. So we find ways to kind of put them in that situation over and over again. And some of the things that we've come up with have been a little off the wall. But I'm not afraid of that because we're training. We're not in here having a spelling contest. We're getting after it. We're trying to lift heavy weights. We're trying to move fast. And the one thing you got to do is you got to make sure you're being safe about it. But that's why we meet. I mean, we'll meet on a competition that might take 4 minutes. We'll meet for 4 hours, making sure that all the parameters are gone over. And the other thing that we found is that if you set the rules and you say you can't step outside of this lane or this ball has to be picked up with this hand or whatever, and one kid makes a mistake and you don't get on that right away, they freak out because you let somebody cut a corner.
Right.
So it just kind of goes back into you're trying to make sure you have your bases covered, and you spend a lot of time meeting on that stuff. But that's what's fun. That's what keeps them engaged. That's what keeps them coming back for more. And it's exciting. That's the way I would want to train if I was doing that.
Well, no doubt. I mean, as you know, I've done things like that for my whole career and got crucified early on by putting it on YouTube or Facebook or things like that. But the reason why I did it wasn't for me. It was that's where the players were, and players, they love seeing themselves, and they're motivated by that and they're excited by it. But beyond that, what you try to do as strength coaches, and you guys do a phenomenal job of this, is create memorable moments. And when you think back to your playing career, and I think back to my playing career, all you can remember are those times when you were, it was the hardest workout you ever had. You're laying on the track, you're hanging out with your buddies. You remember those parts of things, or you remember the things outside. And whether that be, we've taken our team and climbed mountains, we've taken them whitewater rafting, we've taken them to a military base, we've, anything to get them outside of their walls. So this is what training should be for football, because they all contribute. It's a dynamic learning environment. I wrote that down. That's a phenomenal way of putting it. But we're so limited in our thinking sometimes that the weight room is limited to just those 4 walls that we have, and it can be so much more, and the impact that we have.
And when you think about it as well, it is a big part about giving them things to remember and making them have these experiences. But there's a physiological component of it too. I mean, these guys are not weightlifters. Okay, we're going to train with great technique, and we're going to make sure that we do the things that are going to help them get stronger in all the areas you need to get strong to play football or any sport that we work with here. But at the same time, I mean, the body wants to adapt. So if all you're doing is squatting for 4 years straight, that's the other thing that, again, I think a lot of people have issues with the type of training that goes on in college because they don't work in college.
Right.
They work in settings where you work with a person for 6, 8, 12 weeks at a time, and then you don't see them again for however long.
Right.
And in that isolated environment, it's easy to stick to the basics and to make that be the majority of what you're doing. But in here, we've got kids. We want to redshirt everybody. So we've got kids for 5 years, and I don't want red shirts to get into their 5th year and not see improvement. So having things cycle in and cycle out, or comboing something with, maybe you're doing a squat, then you got to go over and you got to pick a keg up and do a clean and jerk with a keg, or implementations of kettlebells and the different types of complex training you can do with non-traditional means versus traditional means. I think it's the same thing we do with everything, right? We draw in different disciplines. We try to interweave the different disciplines. It's the same thing. You're just finding different ways to progress your movements and put a different stimulus on the body to keep it adapting. Sure. So there's a lot of different sides to that whole deal. And I think at the end of the day, it's your product you're putting out. You want it to be the best product. So why aren't you going to do a little bit of bodybuilding? Why aren't you going to do Olympic weightlifting? Why aren't you going to have CrossFit is the biggest thing going right now to talk about.
Right.
I ain't afraid to say that we use it. I ain't afraid to say that we use elements of it.
Absolutely.
Do I go to the CrossFit website and take the water the day off and use that? No. Yeah. But I've learned a lot of things from CrossFit, valuable things that we do every day in here, and the kids love, and we've seen great results because of it.
Well, that's great. And you talk, we talked a little bit off camera about the multi-disciplines that you use. I mean, you bring in a yoga instructor.
Yes.
You've brought in, I'm sure, maybe a CrossFit person in to talk to your staff, possibly. But that's exactly right. I mean, I think, again, anybody that's ever heard me speak has heard me say I'm a principle-based strength coach, not a philosophy-based strength coach. And so, yeah, I'm not going to walk in and be just a CrossFitter or an elite fitness guy or a high-intensity guy or whatever. But there's elements of all those programs that are that work, and when you find those tools that you can add in and you understand overload and progression and balance development and those types of things, then you can take a wall ball from a CrossFit, or you can take a downward dog from yoga or whatever, and implement that into your program. Talk a little bit about how you've incorporated, how you've kind of reached out and utilized some of those resources.
Well, yoga, for instance, is what's the first thing that any coach wants to say is my guy's hips are too tight, or my guy doesn't play low enough, and they need more flexibility. And, yoga is flexibility. Yoga is mobility. So I said, hey, why not find somebody that can come in, a person that's willing to sit down with me, hear my needs, hear what I want to do and what I don't want to do, and shape something with me, and see if we can get benefit out of it. And I didn't know what to expect. I'm asking our 300-pound nose tackle and our 220-pound linebackers to go and do yoga. I mean, these guys are from, that 300-pound line. We got a 300-pound lineman from Muck City, Florida. And, he ain't never heard. He didn't know what to expect going in there.
Right.
But you get these guys in there, and you're onto something when you got those kids I just referred to, and they're begging for it in the off season. They're begging for it weeks after it's done. They're always asking, when are we going to do that again? So to me, that says it's making them feel good, because they ain't just doing it because it's fun. Because it ain't no fun. Yeah. 45 minutes in a yoga room where the instructor is told by me to not hold back and to crank it up on them. And you got guys, they're dying in there because it's hard. It's hard to do some of that stuff. But, you're onto something when the kids beg for it. And we've had tremendous success with that. And it just came down to, like anything else, you got a game plan. So we said, all right, when is this going to help us out? Well, one time it helps us out is in the winter. When we're going hard, when we're lifting hard, we're running hard, it's helping them from a recovery standpoint. It's helping their mind. There's also a mental side of it, where their mind gets to get away from this whole environment of the military, of the chaotic, fast-paced stuff, and they can shift gears and just kind of let their mind be right in that moment at that one point in time, and not be worried about the 50 other things that are going on in their life.
Right.
And when you can do that for 2 45-minute sessions a week, you start to pull things out of that. You start to find yourself, like, there's nothing cooler than when I come in on a game day and we have we have 2 starting quarterbacks. They split time, but one of those guys, he's got this whole routine on game day. He gets away from everybody and he spends 20 minutes just doing a breathing exercise on the ground. And then he goes into his hurdle mobility, his stretching, his foam rolling and all that.
Right.
But it's awesome to see them pull things out of a yoga practice, where our yoga instructor, Lynn Talley, is phenomenal. And she's a petite woman that, I put her in the room with football players, and I was like, hey, don't let these guys intimidate you. Just do your thing. I'll be in there to help you.
Right.
But just do your thing. And she was, she hit the ground running. And it was like, you couldn't tell she was working with football players. You think she was working with her own clients. And she's commanded their respect, because I think they see the value in it so much. She's been with me for 5 years, and we're not going to separate at all. She's going to be. I try to find ways to plug her in even more.
Right.
But then there's so much that I drew from it. Part of our warm up now, our movement prep, has yoga elements in it. The different types of ISO holds with for thoracic spine mobility, you're getting rotations up top. There's different poses that we have taken right out of the yoga classes and put them into our warm up.
Sure.
Put them into cool downs or put them into recovery sessions when the guys got to come in here.
Yep.
Because when you look at yoga, it's isometric contraction, it's dynamic flexibility, it's passive stretching,
right,
and it's balance work, and your lungs getting who doesn't want that to be a part of their strength conditioning program?
No doubt.
So, yeah, that was where we went with yoga. And then, I mean, from a CrossFit standpoint, you got the elements of community. You got the elements of unique rep schemes and sets and rep schemes that are, they're just different. You know,
exhaustion and overload, the whole deal. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, it's just completely different than things that we're used to. So why not find elements that can fit into our current program and go ahead and use them and spice things up a little bit when you need to.
Right.
And then, I mean, boxing, we've incorporated boxing. I was very lucky to have a guy on my staff, Brian Tracy, who's out at New Mexico Military Institute now. He was a boxer all his life. And he came down, and he obviously, what football player doesn't want to learn how to punch?
Right.
We got to the point where we were so into it just from a fitness standpoint. We all learned how to do it. We all learned how to make our own little circuits.
Yep.
And boxing took off.
Yeah.
You know, and right now the thing that people are beating down the doors down is hydrotherapy, and I call it hydrotherapy, but it ain't hydro. It's just me bringing them over to the swimming pool and doing movement in the swimming pool.
Yep.
Finding different ways to how can we make the swimming pool a challenge without having them just swim 500 meters because they can't.
That's right.
You know, how do we make them? What are things we can do in a swimming pool that's gonna get the water on their body to get that therapeutic effect of just having the water massage your body. Get a little bit of weight off your feet and move around, do dynamic flexibility, and do different types of movements that are going to take the body through a range of motion and recover it.
Right.
And we got guys now that our swimming pool on campus at the rec center, they're on set hours, and they can't even keep up with our football players. So our football players want to get over there all the time.
That's awesome.
And get in the swimming pool.
Well, anytime you can tap into whatever Xbox or whatever games they got going right now time and steal some of that, you know you're definitely onto something, you know.
Yes.
But you know, one of the things that I've always heard, I constantly hear about your staff manual. I from countless people. I know you're heavily involved in staff development. That's part of the reason why you've been able to grow your staff, retain people when they're not being made, when they don't make nearly as much, and then attract quality candidates when you do have positions open. Talk a little bit about maybe the weekly structure or that schedule that you use, and maybe how you've created that manual that I hear so much about.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, first off, before we get into that, it's very simple. And I read Good to Great probably 3 years ago,
yeah.
4 years ago. 4 years ago, I read Good to Great, and the first thing you say in the book is get the right people on the bus.
The right seats.
And I took that to heart. Is we have to find them. We have to. And then I heard Brad Stevens. I think Brad Stevens is the name of the Butler basketball coach.
Yep.
They've had a lot of success recently. He was in an interview and he said, we don't recruit with the same budget that a Kentucky has or a Memphis has or the bigger schools. We have to go find people that want to come here. And for me, that makes total sense. I don't need to go and find people and beg them to come work for us.
Right.
I need to go find the people that want to work for us. Mm-hmm. So that's like kind of a two-pronged thing. It's number one, finding the right people to come in here and work, but also what makes them want to come in here and want to work? Well, Facebook and social media, which you've alluded to. I've spent a lot of time on developing that presence online and sharing our program. And it's not about me, because if you look at any of our YouTube videos, I'm very rarely in the videos because I'm the one shooting the footage.
Yeah.
Because I don't care about being in that. It doesn't have nothing to do with me. It has to do with our program. It has to do with the team.
Sure.
So putting ourselves out there, we have found that it has drawn people to us. And when I have, not to get into specifics, but I don't even have to open a national search per se anymore for a graduate assistant. I'm able to find and always have a list of people who might be in an internship right now or who might be getting ready to graduate and move on.
Right.
And we've had great candidates. I just hired a GA 2 weeks ago, and we had 4 candidates that were phenomenal. I could have hired any one of them. Mm-hmm. It just came down to find them the best fit for us at the time. But literally, any one of those candidates would have been a great fit for us. And it just comes down to timing and the amount of opportunities you got on your staff. I would have hired all 4 of them if I could have. So that's my approach going into it.
Right. But
then when we get them here, I think the number one thing for me has been I don't hold their hand. We give them the presentation. We've got PowerPoints on our philosophy. We've got PowerPoints on the program the system that we use. We teach them the tier system when they get in here. We've got our policies and procedures manual is a big deal that we go over, and we're just thorough with it all. And right. I think when they come in and they see that it's so thorough, they get the message really quick that I better sink or swim. I don't want to be the guy that's the weak link or the girl that's the weak link on the staff, so I better do what's requested of me. And what I do is I don't hold their hand through the process. I say, here's your specific roles, your specific responsibilities. Here's what's going to be expected from you. Here's what people have done in the past. And your responsibility here is to train the golf team the way I train the football team. And I'm not saying to use the same training program, but I'm saying that you better bring your A game to the table to make that golf team want to be in this weight room every single day.
Yep.
And do that with all of our teams. And what I found is that because all the teams are held to the same standard, it's not okay for the wrestlers to show up late.
Right.
You know, it's not okay for the cross country team to not show up one day and not notify somebody. There's a process you go through. Everybody's held to the same standards, and because of that streamlined approach across the board, you just find that people don't want to fall below the line. They want to be as good, if not better, than the rest of the staff. So you get competition going.
Sure.
And then the other thing I would say is that you clearly outline responsibilities. Like we divide our staff up with divisions. You got interactive media is my area, and our in-service curriculum. So I'm responsible for that for those two regions. It's my job. If I want to go and ask help from our 3 GAs with a video, I can do that, but it's my responsibility to bring that to the table.
Right.
We've got facility operations, which everybody does. Acquiring new stuff, inventory, and the maintenance schedule. We've got intern or manager scheduling because we use managers over from the core.
Right.
You've got in-house education. Our in-house education is what kind of visual aids are we putting around the weight room. We've got an info board that we use, just like I use a Facebook page, and there's a different there's different areas on there. We have images, quotes. We've got different types of training that you might so we might outline like the Shako method.
Yeah.
We might outline German volume training. We might just put that out because, again, interactive learning environment, we want them to be able to have a resource to go and look and see something that they're not going to see without us.
Yeah.
So, you divide it up like that. We give each GA and each of my staff members responsibilities, and then, we meet once a week. As a staff, we have a big staff meeting every Monday.
And what time do you use that?
We meet at 10 o'clock. And we're supposed to be done by like 11:30, but sometimes we've been known to go until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I hear you.
And just because of people have good ideas, they bring thoughts to the table.
Yeah.
And we'll get into debates. We'll get into debates about stuff. I mean, I've changed philosophy I've changed philosophies on how we progress through our Olympic lifts. I used to have the Mike Boyle method ingrained in me, and that was the way I wanted it done.
Right.
Then we got some people down here that had a little more experience with higher level Olympic lifting,
right,
and got to realize how easy it was to kind of progress through some of the other methods, and we've changed on the spot. And that's me being able to go in front of my staff and saying like your thoughts are needed, your ideas and your perspectives are needed.
Right.
And what I have found, just like with an athlete, is when a person feels that and they feel that that's the truth, they want to offer more and they want to just produce more. Mm-hmm. And then that turns into them just professional development wise, contacting other people. We strongly encourage that.
Right.
One of the first things my staff has to do when they get in here is they have to update and clean up their Facebook profile, and then it's the whole shift of you might have been in college and this thing might have been for fun, but it ain't for fun anymore. This has got to be about business.
Right.
Because if you're serious about being a strength coach and you don't capitalize on Facebook or social media in some capacity, then you're not really interested in becoming a strength coach because this can help you.
No doubt.
It'd be like saying a certification is not important. That because you're not going to get hired at some point. Somebody's going to say no, liability wise, we got to hire them.
Right.
It'd be like saying an internship is not important. Well, now there's another tool where you have to really put your time and effort into to get your name out there and to connect with other people that are doing the same thing you're trying to do or have already done it.
Sure.
And and then we'll have different in-service meetings. We'll meet and we'll talk. If I have a video, like for instance, one thing we just did was I had an assistant just go up to the Greenville clinic that was just up there.
Yeah.
We had other talks that we were talking about. We came together and we recapped all of those talks. As opposed to like trying to. I couldn't be at the Greenville clinic because I was out of town.
Right.
And we find ways to do that all the time. Because we put an extreme value and a priority on growing and learning, and so that's a part of it. And then obviously trying to find new methods, new ways to do things.
No doubt.
Any research we can get. It's not just reading books either. Sometimes it's just getting on Twitter, getting in connection with some guy that's across the United States, and then getting on the phone with them. And then you're just shocked at how willing these people are. When I was getting started, I don't know if you were the same way. I was scared to speak to a Ron McKeefery. I was intimidated. I didn't want to. I was like, I'm not going to call Ron McKeefery. He's got 20 interns and he's running the thing outside. I'm not going to call him. He doesn't have time for me. Right. I'm not going to pick the phone up and call Pat Ivy at Missouri. I'm just not going to do it.
Right.
But what I found is that the more often you do it, I'm always amazed at what people are willing to open up and share. And I've had very limited times where I've done that and reached out, or anybody on my staff has reached out, and they've reached a dead end.
Right.
It tends to always be that people are willing to help, willing to share.
Well, definitely more, and it's a lot easier now with those platforms you mentioned, social media platforms. It's so much easier. Skype, what we're on right now. I mean, I started these things because I was traveling around, and it was costing a lot of money. Going and staying in a hotel and driving to wherever. And, I started thinking, well, what's another way of doing this? And the Skype interviews. And then I was sitting there talking to one of my old assistants and saying that we should really record these and put these up. And that's where this all started, and trying to help others. But it's so much, you're right. You hit the nail right on the head again with coaches coaches have a great heart or they wouldn't be coaches in the first place. And they've all traveled down the path that each other are traveling down, and so, if I can help another young coach not make some of the mistakes that I made when I was in their shoes, I'm always going to reach out and offer that up. I have no problem doing that, and I know you do the same. We could go on for hours with this, man. You're wealth of resource, but we've hit the 2-minute warning here, and I wanted to get some things from you on some recommendations. So give everybody either a book that you're reading right now or a book that you recommend every strength coach read.
Well, is it supposed to be geared towards like strength conditioning or just a book?
No, actually, I prefer it doesn't. I prefer thinking outside the box. My personal
one of my favorite. I mean, I got a lot of books I could list, but the Steve Jobs biography.
That's awesome.
I just got done reading that. It took me a while because it's a big book, but that book and how does Steve Jobs apply to us? Well, it just gives you a good insight into his life and the kind of duality that he lived with. It's kind of notorious now, but the ultimate contributor to technology or contributor to, you could argue that he kind of contributed the most to really the world. Obviously, there's doctors out there that have done other things, but if you look at somebody there's a reason Apple's the most valuable company out there,
right?
And the products that they put out and the way that they went about doing it, when everybody said it was the wrong way, he had the persistence to stay on path, and he wasn't concerned with people liking him. He didn't care about that. And when you read about guys at the pinnacle of the professions of whatever it is you're looking at, whether it's Bill Belichick with the Patriots, Nick Saban at Alabama, or if you go into other realms, you tend to find out that in order to do great things and to do things differently than other people have, you can't be concerned with making a lot of friends. You have to be concerned with doing the job that you got to do. Now, that's not a green light to be a prick to everybody,
right?
But it goes into decision making. And if your decision, is going to be the right decision, but it might be the wrong one in the eyes of everybody else that's telling you,
right,
which one to make, you've got to have the tenacity to stay in there and do it, and then to see it through to the end. And that book was incredible, man. The biographer that wrote that thing and the things that they shared from the inner workings of his personal life and Apple and everything that was involved with the whole, the rift between them and Google and the Bill Gates deal with Microsoft. It was really interesting to read about and to learn about. And it was one of my favorite books that I've ever read.
I've said it before, but, I have kind of a pretty, I would say, rigorous reading schedule. I read a book a week. I try to read a book a week. And, one book, and it's a 3-week cycle. One's a strength and conditioning book, week 1. Week 2 is a leadership or an entrepreneur business book. And then the third one is I added when I had kids was some sort of family, becoming a better father book. And, it doesn't always have to be, sitting down at night and reading. Most of the time I'm reading it on my iPhone at night, or I'm listening into it in the car to and from work.
Right.
It doesn't always have to be reading, but I'll tell you, I grew the most as a strength coach when I added that entrepreneur leadership book to my rotation, because
without a doubt
you grow so much learning how other successful people have done what they've done. But give me a website that maybe you go to regularly to kind of pick up an idea or
kind of along those same lines of being outside of our realm. I read a lot of the tech websites, and two of them that I've spent a lot of time on are Mashable.com.
Yeah, got it on my phone.
Yeah, Mashable.com, and then and Lifehacker.com, which is just they're a lot of the stuff is about tech, and you're reading about a new cell phone patent that comes out. And I can care less about that. I skim, but then occasionally you've got leadership stuff on there.
Yeah. You've
got professional development stuff on there, just talking about writing a resume, your portfolio, and there's a ton of networking advice on there.
Yeah.
And from everything from social networking to just regular networking. It's not all about the tech industry, but those two websites, man, I draw a lot from those two because again, we are leading a figurative company. Even though we're not trying to make money off this here, right. It is an organization. It's an organization no different than a Fortune 500 company.
I agree.
There's a person at the top leading it. You've got shareholders. You've got people that are counting on you. So I draw a lot from that realm. And those are the websites that I spend a lot of time. Of course, from the outside of the learning websites, YouTube and things like that where you can go to learn about what we're doing. But yeah, Mashable and Lifehacker.com are two good ones.
I got those two, and I got TechCrunch. I don't know if you use TechCrunch.
TechCrunch is awesome. Yeah, same thing.
Give me an app that maybe you use with your athletes or you use regularly.
Well, I don't have an app that I use with the athletes per se. I know that there are a bunch of things coming out on the phone with the heart rate variability and all that stuff, and that's all good and dandy. We're not at the point where we can use any of that stuff with our people here. But an app that I would say is a good one for us to look at is a web app. It's not a phone app, but it's a new way to do presentations, which is called Prezi. Prezi.com. It's an online presentation software.
Yep.
It's far superior to PowerPoint. And again, the whole learning environment. I've given, I think, 3 talks to our football team on different subjects.
Right.
One of them was social media. One of them was like mental preparation for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that you can use, and it just makes things so much better. And it's easy to use. It's free to sign up. And you just go to Prezi.com. All you need is an email address, and you get plugged right into it, and you just start tinkering with it, and you find out, man, it's a lot more fun to do a presentation on that than it is PowerPoint. And I'm going to speak next month at Brown University, and I'll be using that for the rest of my time presenting, I think, until something newer comes out. But it's a good one.
I've played around with it a little bit. It hasn't come to me as naturally for some reason, but
it took me some time. But once you get into it and you start like maneuvering around it and you figure out how to use it well, it can help you out well, and it's a pretty cool deal.
You can keep your presentation in the cloud as well, right? And
be able to get everything's on the cloud, so you can access them from anywhere. You can access them from any. But the neat thing about it is you can also download it, so you don't need internet to go wherever you're presenting. And that's what I usually do. I put it on a thumb drive and do it like that.
That's a great idea. What about I know you've had a lot of teachers. Give me a couple of mentors that you've had throughout your career.
A lot, man. Mentor, people I've already named, got to mention Frank Wintrick for hiring me. And when I came down here, I thought I had everything figured out. Yeah. I was a little older than a normal GA. I was the oldest one on the staff at the time. But, man, he showed me how to work. He showed me how to work. He showed me how to organize a plan behind the scenes and how to develop things and be thorough with it. Mm-hmm. And he also kind of showed me the standard that was going to be expected at this level or the next level, which he had experience from the higher up level. Right. And that was an eye-opening experience to me to see the way that, the time that he put into developing the program, and the time to shape your policies, your procedures, and to have rules and standards and the importance of them.
Yep.
And then another person I've learned a ton from is Joe Ken. Joe, kind of through the Frank relationship, through Adam's relationship with myself, Joe Ken, I've been fortunate enough to have a good relationship with him. And he shared tons with me, and he'll tell you I'm a good listener. So he likes to present and he likes to talk.
Oh yeah.
So when he talks, I'll sit there and listen.
No doubt.
Over the past 5+ years, I've learned a ton from him, and also not just about from a programming standpoint. That's obvious. His book was one of the most valuable to me, the tier system book, but just about the profession and learning about the profession and hearing about his experiences, man. Just his whole path and the way the game has evolved. And, so he had a big part in everything that we're doing down here. And then, again, David Jack, from a mentor standpoint, just a special guy. People are out there listening to this, and if they can get in touch with David Jack in any way, Facebook, Twitter, he's on there, both of those, or give him a call.
Yeah.
I promise all you people that are listening to this, your day will be better for contacting that guy. I don't know how, but it will end up better.
Yeah.
That's the type of dude he is. And then lastly, I already mentioned them, but Teddy Perlak, Jeremy Frisch, and Frank Nash, who are all in our industry. They're all in it to win it. They're all great dudes. They're all guys that people would benefit from learning from. And then lastly, Jeff Oliver, man. Jeff Oliver was the first templates I got a hold of. He's at Holy Cross. He's been there for, I think, 15 years plus.
Yeah.
And another guy with a different perspective than what you're used to hearing. I had to call him on some of the instances where I had the opportunity to kind of leave and move on from here. And he was just talking to him about quality of life and, where you want your family to end up. And what he has established and built at Holy Cross, kind of outside of the weight room. He's got a phenomenal summer speed camp that's just kills it. And just real fortunate to have that guy in my corner and be able to pick the phone up and call him. But, man, there's been a lot. I mean, if we're running out of time, I could probably keep on saying names on it.
A lot of common.
Get the microphone, because I'll give shout-outs all day.
A lot of common threads there. Frank was on my staff, made us 100 times better. Joe, I've known for a long time. David Jack, I met this last week, and I'm going to try to get him on the show. We've talked a little bit about that as well. I agree with you. He's a class act, no doubt. Give me a quote that you live by. Kind of close it out with a quote that you live by, either in your personal life or in your professional life.
Well, I'd like to give you two, because these are two that you've asked a lot about both of these. And the first one is, I think Bill Parcells said this, and I'm probably not crediting the right source, but it's not what I know as a coach, it's what I can impute on you as a coach.
Yeah.
So, and that that's serious for us here, because we'll get kids down here that want to work or interview with, and they are the smartest, brightest young minds that I've ever heard. But they lose sight of the fact that all that information and knowledge in your head doesn't matter unless you can manifest it into some kind of reality for an athlete. And again, knowing how the athletes are nowadays, they're again, learning disorders are out there. Public education probably isn't what it used to be. People down here, they're on a fast track to college athletics. They get through things quick, and they might not have picked things up the way I did back in my day. But that's a super important one. And then the other one would be, if you do a good job, this is from the Belichick biography, but if you do a good job, you're going to be rewarded with more work. And that's something that we tell these guys down here. Like you're a victim of your own success. If you do a good job, I'm going to find more things to throw in your lap. And that should be your ultimate. The reason I want to share those two is because they both kind of shape my personal beliefs.
Right.
If I do a good job down here, I'm not looking to have less hours to work or have less obligation to the department. I want more responsibility, because if you think I do a good job, I want to help you out in every area that I possibly can. So find more work for me and let me go ahead and get after it.
No doubt.
And that's something, of course, that we kind of impress upon our staff. And they've, up to this point, they realize that, and they understand it after they get going. And I think when they see what they're capable of, it kind of unlocks more motivation inside of them to go ahead and keep living by that. But those are two quotes that I would definitely say that I live by.
Well, I'll make sure to link up all your social media. I know you're very active there, but is there any one specific one you want me to kind of direct people to?
Definitely, my most important one is our strength page on Facebook. It's the most interactive. It's the one that we, even I'm on Twitter, but Twitter is connected to the Facebook page.
Yep.
The Facebook page is something that we've just tried to put out there to kind of let as a resource for our younger people in our field to get an insight as to what we do. And I'm not afraid to share anything. One of the craziest things to me is like how protective people are over stuff, which is fine, because if you're in the private sector and you're trying to make money, that's a whole different deal. But
right.
I'll share our templates on there. I have videos all the time that I want to show people how we do things, because I think that when you can get different perspectives on the way other people work, it can make your perspective get improved, because you might have something that you obviously didn't think of before.
No doubt.
But we're on it. We're active on it. So if people want to connect out, reach out to us. We respond to stuff. It's not just a dead page that we leave dormant. We use it to interact with the rest of the people in our field. And then, of course, our athletes. It's for our athletes first and foremost. But I've used it as a great way to connect with people all over the country, and that's something I'm going to continue doing.
Well, hey, bud, I appreciate your time, man. I know everybody got a ton of great information out of this, and you're a class act, and you guys, not just you, but I know you've said this several times, but I've had a chance to interact with your staff on numerous occasions, and their class acts as well, and that's a testament to your leadership. So, appreciate you coming on, brother.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here, Coach, and anything else we can do to help, let us know.
Thanks, man. Okay, guys, before we let you go, a couple quick announcements. All the links that we mentioned in the show will be linked up down below in the show notes. Make sure you go there to be able to access anything that Donnell mentioned in his presentation. Also, go to ronmckeefery.com/footballstrong, FB Strong, to get more details about the 2 clinics that I'm running in May in Detroit and then one in Baltimore. Both have great speaker lineups. Couldn't be happier with that. Really designed for the football strength coach or the performance coach that works specifically with football athletes. We outline the annual plan, winter, summer, and end season, and then we have an NFL strength coach speak as kind of a keynote philosophy. And it's been an event that we've ran in past years, and it's had great reviews. So go to ronmckeefery.com/footballstrong, FB Strong, for more information on that and how to register. Also, a project that I'm real excited about, Strength on Demand. If you love these videos that we've been doing, these episodes, then you'll love Strength on Demand. It'll be right in your wheelhouse. I know you'll enjoy it. I've been working on it for quite some time now, and we should be releasing it here soon. So stay tuned to more details regarding Strength on Demand, and have a great rest of the week.